Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special meeting of the Larkspur City Council on Thursday, April 23rd, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. This is by video teleconference only, and the instructions on how to join our meeting are available on our website, as well as phoning in information, and everything is available on the city's website under the agendas. So let's begin. Allison, our city clerk, could you please take a roll call?
Councilmember Candell?
I'm here.
Councilmember Helmer?
Here.
Councilmember Paulson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hara?
Here.
Mayor Way?
Here. And if you can scroll down on the agenda there, we can have, we're in real time now. And everyone who might be watching can see that we have come to public comment. And public comment is a time for members of the public to address the City Council regarding items that are not on the agenda. Please follow the instructions above on how to provide the public comment, and individuals have 3 minutes to speak. Allison, is there anyone who has raised their hand to give public comment?
I'm just checking now for raised hands or any emailed public comment. And I will give 1 moment for everyone to reply. And no, there's no public comment.
Okay, and like I've done in the last couple of meetings, since this is a brand new platform for us, we may return to that again if someone appears in the audience and wants to raise their hand and be recognized, we'll recognize them. That moves us to 3, which is business item, which is the adoption of an early retirement incentive plan, an ERIP. Could we please have a staff report?
Yes, Madam Mayor and council members, this is City Manager Dan Schwartz presenting. The city is facing a very challenging fiscal situation for the balance of the current fiscal year and projected challenges into the next 2 fiscal years. As I've presented to you in your regular meetings, as part of those projections and how we can cope with anticipated revenue shortfalls, we do anticipate needing to downsize our staffing and reduce our service levels accordingly. As we go through the processes internally as a staff to analyze how best to accomplish our service goals while also downsizing our costs, we want to have the full array of tools available to us to potentially incentivize attrition, that is, create vacancies in staffing. And so one of the tools that we would like to have in the toolbox is the option to offer an incentive to employees who are of the age and eligibility to retire, both under the California Public Employees Retirement System and also under the city's various internal programs for retirement. And so we are presenting to you early retirement incentive program in which employees who meet the criteria established in the outline provided to you might consider retiring before the end of this fiscal year, essentially helping us accelerate our attrition and save money and help drive some of our decisions about how we'll staff in the coming 2 fiscal years. This is a voluntary program. The employees are not required to participate, although in the next 2 weeks we do anticipate presenting to all of our employees what our likely budget recommendations to the City Council will be and what those implications are for staff. And we certainly could anticipate that some of the employees that are eligible to participate in this program may elect to take the voluntary incentive after they've weighed the various options for what staffing and compensation will look like next year. So the basis of the program is to award employees with $1,000 a year per year of service that they've provided to the city. We are also recommending that we offer up to 2 years of credit toward vesting to our retiree medical benefit program. We believe these are reasonable incentives that the city can afford. The cost to provide the incentives would come out of the general fund reserve. we believe we can pay for these benefits while maintaining a reserve well in excess of the 25% required by your policy, were all of the employees to elect to, who are eligible were to elect to take the benefit. In total, as we presented, there's a substantial amount of savings if all the employees were to take the benefit, but of course, if all of the employees were to take it, we might need to look at hiring 1 or 2 people to make sure we could still provide sufficient staffing levels. At this time, I'd request that you approve the resolution so that I have this tool available to me as I have the discussions in the next week or 2 with employees. With that, I turn it back to you for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. It looks like Kevin, are you still here on audio? You dropped off of video.
Yeah, I dropped off on
Okay.
video, although they're up now,
I
back
see you
on again.
Okay.
And that's why I do my phone and the video, because
Okay.
one fails, the other still works. So
All right, I just want to make sure
I'm
you
still
were
here.
still there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll bring this to the council for questions of the city manager on this issue.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Scott.
My question is, let's say hypothetically no one chooses to accept this. Do the contracts that we have with our employees allow us to let employees go in order to make our budget work? Or is this something that we're, it's either if they don't accept this, that we don't have any option but to keep them on?
So we have 2, well, we have 3 units of employees in the city. We have the unrepresented management unit. We have an unrepresented classified, confidential unit. And we have the represented unit, which is the Miscellaneous Employee Association. And the answer is slightly different for each one. Management employees work at will for the city. And so the city has the option to terminate their employment as necessary. There is a provision for a severance package if the employee is terminated without cause, which would be the case there. But so the answer is yes, that is an option for management. In a situation where there's a fiscal crisis and the city manager has presented to the city council that it's necessary to make cuts that include positions in order to deal with the fiscal crisis, we do have the option to do layoffs in our represented ranks, but there's processes that have to be followed in terms of meeting with the employee association to discuss the implications and ramifications of those layoffs in terms of the workloads for the remaining employees. So that process would be a little more complicated, and sometimes it produces a decision matrix that may be different than the original decisions made by the management.
Would it be fair to say that the incentive package that we're offering would be more generous than the severance pay, which would be required to pay under the contractual obligations?
Well, the management employees, if they were to opt to be laid off, then they would essentially have their employment terminated and they'd no longer be eligible for the retiree medical program. So I guess the answer is yes in that respect. With respect to the represented employees, again, if they're eligible to retire and you're terminating them through layoff, they potentially risk losing their retiree medical. I think the important thing to keep in mind here, though, is how we conduct ourselves as an employer today and how we deal with this crisis with our employees will speak to not only to our employee base, but to future potential employees about the type of entity and agency we are. And when we're looking at potentially releasing employees who've dedicated many years to the city, I think it's important that we keep that in mind, because for the city, we need to, we need to be consistent with our who we are and what our character is. And I think we have a long-standing belief that we should be cognizant of the contributions that people have made to our organization. And this tool in the toolbox is one to potentially help people make difficult decisions and soften the challenge of making those difficult decisions.
Dan, I don't want you to misunderstand me. My questions are to ensure that what's being offered is more advantageous to our employees than the
well, the alternative path risks losing your retiree medical benefit. So yes, in that respect, it would be a better choice.
And that would be for all three of the categories that you've mentioned?
Yes. Yes.
Are there further questions? Other questions?
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Just what's the estimated financial impact, of, I mean, I know this is the vote on a tool, but, is there any more that can be said about, what this might do in the best case scenario or, the not so best case scenario?
I am working with Kathy Orm to try to reduce payroll in total by roughly $1 million. This program will not reduce the payroll by $1 million. There will be other difficult decisions to reach that number. Fortunately, we have a number of vacant positions in the city as well. So one of the things we'll be doing is figuring out what happens if we just don't fill our vacant positions. If everyone who's eligible for this program chooses to retire, there are functional problems for the city, given who's on this list of eligibility and what they do for the city. So I don't know that I can fully answer your question, Councilmember Paulson, because I don't know what I would then recommend we spend to deal with the service gaps that might be created. What I can tell you is I think that I hope that for some folks, this eases a difficult choice they may have to make while we make difficult choices as an employer to reach that target that we've set.
And I wanted to remind the rest of the council that at our last meeting, we voted and approved a finance ad hoc committee to work with Dan and Kathy Orem. And we did meet 2 weeks or 10 days ago about this issue, along with several of our other financial advisors. So it was something that has been vetted already at one point. Are there other questions? Okay, so sure, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, no, not a question, but just a comment. I mean, I kind of view this process that we're discussing this afternoon as a way really primarily to take care of our employees and provide them with, paths toward the future. We'll be still having to face significant financial decisions as a city in a variety of different respects. So to me, this is mostly a way of taking care of our folks. So I'm really in support of it.
And I think that's important. I think you mentioned that, Dan, is that, and I know Larkspur has a reputation of long-term employees and a process of respectful dialogue with management and with the council. So I appreciate that you're looking at this as an opportunity for them to have options that will benefit themselves and their family if need be. So if there's no more questions, I'll open this up to the public. Oh, one more, Scott, go ahead.
Yes, sorry. The 10-year kind of line that you drew, as you have to have 10-year employment in order to be eligible for this, was there some basis? I mean, was that a random number because it's a nice round number? Were there some financials that went into deciding it should be 10 years as opposed to 8 or 12? And what would be the implications if we extended it a little bit? to allow other people to take advantage of this if they haven't been working there for 10 years?
So 10 years is the minimum level to vest to any form of retirement, retiree medical benefit for the vast majority of the employees that are still in one of our retiree medical programs. And at this time, I didn't want to necessarily pressure an employee to make a retirement decision if I could help it without them necessarily being eligible for the retiree medical benefit.
Well, I'm sorry, if we're going to give them 2 years of credit, wouldn't somebody who's been with us 8 years with that 2 year of credit then be eligible?
They would. When we ran the census against the employee base, I didn't see anyone who met that threshold when I did the analysis.
Fair. Thank you.
Okay, so Allison, we're going to open this up to anyone in the public has a comment or a question in regards to business item 3.1, which is the adoption of an early retirement incentive plan. Is there anyone in the audience?
So right now we have no raised hands to provide public comment, and there have been no email submitted comments.
Thank you very much, Allison. Okay, bringing it back to the council, are there any further questions regarding resolution 2220? Seeing none, if anyone is interested in putting forward a resolution? Go for it.
I move to approve the resolution.
All right. Did you see that, Allison? That was Vice Mayor Haroff and Councilmember Dan Hilmer.
A joint motion.
All in favor? And Allison has to do a roll call vote, remember?
Thank you. Councilmember Candell?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Paulson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Haroff?
Yes.
Mayor Way?
Yes. And seeing that it's unanimous, there are no noes or abstentions. So thank you for that. And thank you, Kathy, Orem, and Dan for putting this together. As you mentioned, one of the many tools we're going to need in a toolbox to maybe utilize or not utilize, depending upon how we struggle out of this financial situation. If there's no other questions or comments, we will adjourn until May 6th. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Just thanks for folks to Dan and Kathy for their hard work. That's all.
Good.
Thanks to all the staff.
Yes. So see you on May 6th if we don't see each other earlier. Be safe and wear your masks. Bye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.